Unveil Sinister Secrets, 5 spine-chilling tales of the cursed rainstorm revealed through thunder. The night hung heavy with an ominous weight as storm clouds rolled over Calvary Hills. The McLain family, blissfully unaware of the whispers of history that lingered in the air, eagerly prepared for the long-awaited family reunion. With laughter bubbling from the living room, the hum of the oven wafted the smell of savory dishes throughout their cozy home. But as the last rays of the sun slipped away, the darkness descended, casting eerie silhouettes that danced menacingly along their backyard fence. It started with a low rumble, an unsettling growl that vibrated through the walls. The children giggled at first, thinking the thunder was just nature's way of joining their celebration. But the laughter faded, replaced by a creeping fear that coiled around their hearts like a serpent. Each clap of thunder struck a nerve, and cold sweat dripped down their backs, as if the storm was alive, a beating heart of malice hovering over their heads. Then there was Scout, the family dog, known for his loyalty. In an instant, he vanished into the shadows. His absence felt like a knife plunged into the family's joy. Panic bubbled up, and the children clung to their parents, their wide eyes reflecting horror as shadows twisted across the lawn. Outside, the wind howled like an angry ghost, murmuring secrets of old. Desperate, the McLains called the police, but the response was apathetic. "Everything's fine," they were told. Little did the officers know, they were racing to bury their own storm of corruption, leaving the McLains to fend for themselves. As they exchanged frantic glances in the dim glow of their living room, stories of the cursed rainstorm began to swirl back to the surface. Stories of spirits wronged by the town, tales whispered under breath around campfires. With each lightning flash, the past echoed louder, urging them to remember. The dad, feeling the weight of the eerie tension, recalled their reclusive neighbor, Mr. Harmon. The old man was rumored to be the town historian, a keeper of dark secrets that played like a ghost story among the townsfolk. His eyes were said to hold depths of knowledge that could either save or doom you. "Should we go to him?" he muttered, fear woven into his fabric. The family hesitated, but the feeling of dread only tightened its grip. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." Rain began to cascade down in relentless sheets, turning their haven into a claustrophobic prison. Each thunderous boom reverberated through their bones, unraveling the secrets buried deep within their souls. Shadows flickered against the windows, and unsettling whispers rose, curling like mist around them, revealing truths each of them had kept hidden. Outside, the storm raged, and in the distance, they glimpsed Mr. Harmon standing eerily still, his eyes glinting with a knowingness that sent chills down their spines. Suddenly, the urge for safety was dashed by horror. What was he waiting for out there? With the thunder roaring, shaking them to their core, a realization struck. Could the man who carried the key to their survival also be the harbinger of their doom? As raw fear flooded through the family, mingling with the raging storm, the house felt smaller. Were they about to unleash something far worse than the cursed rain by unveiling the truth? Shadows clung to corners, thick and hungry, as they turned back into the house with one question echoing in their minds. What lay hidden behind Mr. Harmon's knowing eyes? The wind howled like a wounded animal, and the rain smashed against the windows, each drop joining the symphony of chaos. With every cascade, a new silhouette danced momentarily against the glass, casting fleeting but terrifying shapes inside the McLain home. Terrified whispers raced through the family, and the children tightened their grip on their parents' arms, eyes wide with confusion and dread. "Maybe he's waiting for something," one of the kids whispered as the thunder cracked overhead, harmonizing with their unspoken fears. The father, Mark, felt the weight of their collective anxiety. He glanced back to the window, the flickering shadows revealing nothing, just the relentless storm and the silhouette of Mr. Harmon, still as stone. Heart racing, Mark acted on instinct. "I'll go out. I need to know what's going on." "No," his wife Sarah gasped. "You can't. What if he's—" She couldn't finish her thought. Her eyes darted nervously back to the window. But the argument was lost in a crash of thunder that rattled the framed family photos hanging on the walls, shaking the very foundation of their reality. When it subsided, Mark, driven by a surge of determination, took a step toward the door. "Stay here," he barked, then dashed into the storm, oblivious to the echoing panic behind him. The cold rain hit him like icy needles, soaking through his clothes in seconds. The world blurred. The darkness of night mixed with the storm, and in that haze he approached Mr. Harmon, the reclusive neighbor who now seemed both invitation and warning. As Mark reached him, the air crackled. "Why are you out here?" Harmon's voice was deep and raspy, laced with an unsettling calm. "You shouldn't be here. The storm awakens them." "Awakens who?" Mark demanded, urgency creeping into his tone. "The cursed," Harmon smirked, eyes glinting with something sinister. "Each thunderclap, each drop of rain, feeds their hunger. They seek to claim what is theirs." What are you talking about?" Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he took an involuntary step back. Harmon leaned in, too close for comfort. "The spirits of those who were wronged, the ones the town abandoned. Tonight is their night to collect." The storm reached a crescendo, blinding flashes of electrified light illuminating the sky like a demon's eye. For a moment, Mark could see the faces of lost souls twisted in anguish, forming behind Harmon, their mouths open in silent screams. He stumbled back, horror flooding his mind. Back in the house, panic erupted. Sarah looked at the door, indecision gripping her stomach. "What if something happened to him?" she whispered, looking to her children who trembled, the flickering light bathing their faces in fear. "Mommy, what's happening?" the youngest cried, clinging to her leg. Before she could respond, the thunder rumbled even closer, sounding more furious, as if in answer to their questions. The shadows within the home thickened, creeping forward, swallowing the light bit by bit. Each flash of lightning revealed moving forms, darting from corner to corner, embodying every whispered story of the past. "Mom, look!" one of the kids shouted, pointing to the window. A figure loomed. Scout, their loyal dog, reappeared out of the storm, drenched and whining. But behind him there were more shadows, like shades clawing at the edges of their reality. "Get away from the window!" Sarah screamed. She rushed to the door, hoping to pull Mark inside before it was too late. But the storm escalated, a cacophony drowning out hope, and the walls began to vibrate. Mark stood frozen, caught between the man and the madness, while shadows swirled, eager for release. A final monstrous strike of thunder crashed, and the power flickered violently, plunging the house into darkness. The fear was palpable, squeezing their lungs, choking their screams. "Mom! Daddy!" A raw, primal sound echoed from the depths of the storm, reverberating through the walls and suffocating their thoughts. Mark felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Harmon's intense gaze pinning him in place. "If you seek to save your family, then you must face what you fear, or lose them forever." As lightning illuminated the very heart of the maelstrom beyond, Mark realized the chilling truth. Theirs was not the only reunion the night held. What was the price of knowledge, and could he afford it? Mark's heart hammered as he stood before Harmon, clutching at the remnants of courage he could find. The wind howled with ferocity, drowning out his thoughts, yet Harmon's words rang clear. "Face what you fear," they echoed. And for the first time, doubt clawed at the edges of his resolve. The shadows swirled, gathering strength like hungering beasts. He caught a glimpse of their elongated fingers reaching out, curling towards him, craving connection, madness, something. "Your family, they can't stay here. They will be taken." Harmon's tone shifted, urgent and menacing. The words were a punch, driving the breath from Mark's lungs. He pivoted toward the house, and through the pounding rain he saw it. The flickering light from the windows, the terrified faces of Sarah and the kids, all while encroaching darkness bled into their haven. "Mark, please!" Sarah's voice pierced the chaos, a raw plea filled with desperation. The flicker of lightning revealed her troubled face, lined with fear, eyes darting as though she could sense the horrors outside. He needed to move, to act. Their safety lay at risk. "I'm coming!" he shouted back, though doubt tugged at his resolve. Just as he turned to run, something cold brushed against his skin. A fleeting touch, almost like a whisper, promising untold secrets. Mark gasped, shaken, as dread washed over him. Only moments had passed, yet the shadows grew bolder, ready to spill into their world. "What do they want?" he shouted at Harmon, trying to pierce the scab of his own terror. "They want what you hold dear," Harmon rasped, his lips curling to reveal a toothy grin that sent chills skittering down Mark's spine. "The price of knowledge is steep. They require a sacrifice tonight." Sacrifice! The concept dug deep into Mark's gut like a knife twisting in flesh. He pictured Sarah, the children, innocent, frightened, all teetering on the edge of despair. Waves of cold washed over his body, leaving him shivering. If Mark didn't confront whatever haunted the storm, perhaps it would come for them in earnest. But what did it mean to confront the unknown? Burdened with a decision, he stepped closer to Harmon, voice steadying. "Tell me how to save my family." "The heart of the storm holds the key," Harmon warned, eyes gleaming with malice. "You must go deeper, face their wrath. The cursed spirits, the vengeful souls they have become, will be steadied by their unanswered pain. You must ask them forgiveness." "Forgiveness?" Mark echoed, scrambling to grasp the fractured pieces of this awful puzzle. "From whom? What have we done?" "The town, the ancient resentments." Harmon's voice ebbed, whispering like the wind. "You will understand when the time comes. But hurry, they will strike soon." Another crash of thunder silenced Mark, visions of lost souls flooding his mind. Unseen spirits clamored for their anguish to be heard, their cries woven into the storm's howling. A gut-wrenching sense of urgency split his thoughts. He bolted toward the house, each step heavier than before, as shadows danced with malicious glee at his heels. Sarah clutched their children, fear etching deep lines on her brow. "Mark, we need to leave, now!" Her voice trembled under the weight of impending doom. "We can't!" Mark shouted. "They want something. We must face this, or what?" The room tilted as fear rippled through them. What do they want from us? Outside, the storm intensified, shattering the world into jagged pieces. For every bolt of lightning, a whisper promised despair. Mark felt his grip on sanity slipping. The reason, the storm awakens them. It's our past, our choices. "Stop!" Sarah cut in, her voice rising above the thunder. "What do you mean?" Lightning illuminated the figures, shadows now twisting as if eager for the final act. The end was near. Mark could feel it consuming the air around them. He pushed against the encroaching darkness, mustering what little strength he had left. Suddenly, from deep within the storm, a chilling wail erupted, tearing through the night. It wasn't just wind or rain. It was a message, anguish mixed with haunting, unceasing hunger. The children screamed. Shadows lunged. The house groaned under unseen pressure. And from the heart of the storm, something began to shift. "Mark, please do something," Sarah cried. As Mark stood between the storm and his family, thunder cracked one last time, shaking the earth itself. Memories of the past began to swirl through him, raw and painful. "Face what you fear," he murmured, attempting to channel the memory of their peaceful lives. There, in the maelstrom of his choices and regrets, Mark sensed a flicker of hope. Or was it merely another shadow closing in? What if confronting the past meant opening an endless abyss? What if it led to something far more sinister, converging just beyond the horizon? Mark's breath came out in ragged gasps as he tried to shield his family from the encroaching nightmare. Sarah's eyes widened, her love and fear woven tightly together. The children clung to her, their small bodies shivering, not from the cold, but from an instinctual dread. The house trembled, rattling like a leaf in the tempest. "No more running," he declared, summoning a flicker of determination. "We face this together." Just as he finished speaking, the window shattered inward. Glass shards sprayed through the air like lethal confetti. The storm howled in a frenzy, shrieking into the house, its icy fingers reaching into their sanctuary. Mark reflexively stepped in front of Sarah and the kids. He could feel the malevolence swirling like a dark storm cloud, hungry for the light and warmth they represented. "Mark!" Sarah yelled, panic lacing her voice. "We can't stay here!" He glanced at her, his heart pounding. "We have to. Whatever this is, it's demanding something from us. I can feel it." The shadows lurked at the edges of the room, contorting into grotesque shapes, whispering secrets old enough to drown them in despair. A flicker of memory flared in Mark's mind, the stories the town told, of people's whispers, the sins buried under their quaint facades. They had turned a blind eye, just like everyone else. The walls of their home began to warp and pulse, as if responding to the cries outside. Figures emerged, ghostly and shrouded in the thick veil of the storm, their faces twisted into anguished expressions. They pointed toward the family, shimmering in and out of focus, pleading for something, for recognition, perhaps revenge. "Mark, we have to go. We should—" "No," he snapped, cutting her off. "You have to trust me. I need to know what they want." The shadows lurked at the edges of the room, contorting into grotesque shapes, whispering secrets old enough to drown them in despair. A flicker of memory flared in Mark's mind, the stories the town told, of people's whispers, the sins buried under their quaint facades. They had turned a blind eye, just like everyone else. The walls of their home began to warp and pulse, as if responding to the cries outside. Figures emerged, ghostly and shrouded in the thick veil of the storm, their faces twisted into anguished expressions. They pointed toward the family, shimmering in and out of focus, pleading for something, for recognition, perhaps revenge. "Mark, we have to go. We should—" "No," he snapped, cutting her off. "You have to trust me. I need to know what they want." He felt the urge to understand their pain, to appease whatever had risen from the depths of the storm. The thought sent a shiver across his spine, but there was more at stake than just survival now. The wailing intensified, echoing off the walls. "Forgive us!" the voices wailed in a chorus, their torment blending with the howl of the wind. "Forgive us for forgetting!" Mark's mind whirled. Forgetting? What could they possibly have forgotten? What have we done?" he whispered, but the shadows only grew more animated, surrounding him with an electric frenzy. A figure stepped closer, its form vaguely familiar. "Your silence was your sin," it rasped, a voice like thunder, terrible and hollow. "You ignored us. You thought we'd fade away." The memories of past townsfolk flashed before him, people they'd passed in the street but never acknowledged, stories half heard from older generations. Mark's stomach lurched. Treachery ran deeper than he realized. "Mark!" Sarah cried out, her voice almost lost beneath the cacophony. With energy fading around him, Mark forced himself to lock eyes with the ghostly figure. "What do you want?" The darkness raised its hand, a gesture both invitational and foreboding. "Open the door to your heart," it said, whispering echoes of forgotten names. Only then can the storm be calmed. Heart pounding, Mark felt a fracture within himself, the weight of his ancestors echoing through time. The memories swirled, battering against him like waves. He could feel their anguish, their desperation cascading over his consciousness. "Mark!" Sarah screamed as the shadows pressed closer, greedy for life, for acceptance. "You can't!" But he was already stepping forward, the urge to understand compelling him with an almost magnetic force. As he did, a powerful wind pulled at his clothes like a living thing, tugging him toward the doorway, inviting him to embrace the very heart of the storm swirling before him. "What happens if I don't?" he whispered, half to himself and half to the figures cloaked in darkness. But there was no answer, only a rising crescendo of shrieks and wails, a promise of something unspeakable lurking just out of sight. Mark took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his family's lives hanging in the balance. He could either succumb to fear or unlock the door to his own past, whatever that might unleash. As he reached for the threshold, something vile slithered across his skin, a reminder that choice held power, but power often came at a terrible cost. What truth would he unearth in the depths of that storm? Would he stand tall or be swept away entirely? A shadow tightened around him, clenching like icy fingers. The heart of the storm beckoned. Would he dare enter, knowing that the answer could lead to his ruin or reveal the salvation they desperately sought? Mark could feel the howling wind escape the cage of his lungs, threatening to pull him into the dark void beyond the threshold. It was as if the storm was a living entity, gnashing its teeth, demanding retribution, demanding acknowledgement. The pulse of fear surged through his veins. With the shadow's hand hovering before him, Mark's heart pounded like a war drum. He glanced back at Sarah, whose eyes shimmered with unshed tears, fear and love colliding in a storm of their own. "Please," she mouthed silently, desperation etched in her features. The children clutched her tighter, their tiny bodies trembling. But the seductive whisper of the past clouded his mind, drowning out her pleas. Each ghostly figure intensified the wailing embrace of the tempest, their hollow eyes searching him, probing him, begging him to take that final step into darkness. Memories, not his, but borrowed from the people of the town, flickered to life. Faces of the lost, of forgotten lives, flickered like candle flames before a gust. "Forgive us," the words echoed, wrapping around him like chains. To understand their pain meant confronting the ugliness he'd ignored. "Mark, please don't!" The urgency in Sarah's voice fractured through the haze. It thrust him back into the moment, but the darkness was hungry. Heart racing, his instincts battled with his desire to resolve the unrest swirling within the storm. Could he unravel the pain of the forgotten? Or would he dam the flood and ensure the shadows of history consumed them all? The figure stepped closer, its face momentarily illuminated by the flash of lightning, grotesque yet heart-wrenching. "Acknowledge us. Speak our names, for they are drowning in silence. Break the cycle. Save them. The urgency surged through him. Was the answer as simple as just speaking names, recognizing those who had lived and suffered? Or was it a trap, an invitation into something far worse? Before he could act, the storm's roar crescendoed violently. The walls shook, the pictures of happier times falling in shattering discord. A powerful gust blasted through the house, knocking Mark back, clattering against the furniture like a wild animal. And in those fleeting moments, an image flashed behind his eyes. David Welks, his childhood friend who had gone missing years ago. More names surged forth. Clara Evans, Mrs. Thornton, the gentle elderly lady who used to bake pies on Sundays. "David!" Mark shouted, his voice swallowed in the chaos. "Clara, please, I remember you." The howling ceased for a heartbeat. A silence so profound, so thick, it pressed against his chest. And then the shadows quivered. The figures, wide-eyed and eager now, leaned toward him. It was a glimmer of hope mingled with horror, but he felt the darkness coiling tighter. Sarah's frightened gasp snapped him back. "Mark, please, don't let this consume you." But the storm, the cold fear within him, had awoken a hunger he never knew existed. There was magic in recognition, a chance to embrace the past, to find the power hidden in the truth. As the light flickered ominously, he shouted more names, each one a thread to the past, pulling him closer to the storm's heart. The shadows began to twist, faces shifting as they absorbed his words. Pain mingled with relief, creating an intoxicating chaos. "Mark!" Sarah's cry was almost lost in the cacophony as something sharp grazed his skin, a harbinger of the storm's power overwhelming his senses. He felt an unwelcome pressure on his chest, a darkness pushing against his will. "Stop!" he pleaded to the engaged specters. "Stand down! I will remember all of you!" Their anguished expressions wavered, shifting from confusion to something resembling hope. Yet they remained unsated. With every name spoken, the storm raged harder, enticing him, pulling him toward an abyss. Lightning flashed once more, filling the room with blinding light, and in that stark clarity he glimpsed something within the storm, a swirling center shimmering at its heart, shielded behind gnarled branches of smoke. The chilled air ignited around him, a final warning that his time was running out. They needed his truth, but at what cost? And amidst the turmoil, that single thought pulsed. What if, in abandoning his fear, he gave in to a fate worse than the torment they faced now? With his family teetering on the brink of despair, would he brave the storm's heart? Or would he turn back, denying the truth that begged to be unleashed? But then the shadows cried out once more, "Remember," and the ground beneath him trembled, daring him to cross the line into destiny or oblivion. What lay at the heart of the storm? Would he unleash the very sins that haunted him, or find the salvation they desperately sought? The answers waited, just out of reach. Mark's breath quickened as the storm's fury pressed against him, a suffocating weight clinging to his chest. The shadows danced, hungry and eager, ready to devour the warmth of his humanity. He glanced back at Sarah, her wide eyes pleading for him to come back. But he felt it, the will of the shadows, a sinister pull toward the darkness, offering solace, clarity, something he'd never wanted before. "Mark!" Sarah screamed, her voice barely a whisper above the roar. He could see the children's scared faces, confusion and fear entwined like a knot. "Don't let them take you!" The figures before him twisted in earnest, their lips moving as if captivating words had been woven into their flesh. For every name he spoke, the storm around him swelled, turning from chaos to harmony. "They need to be heard, just like you," said the shadow closest to him, its voice a mix of sorrow and anticipation. But uncertainty coiled around him like a serpent. "What if I say a name and it brings more darkness?" he murmured, the thought of slashing through his mind. The thought of giving life to their agony made him sick. With every pulse of the storm, memories shattered inside him. The day he'd lost David blended with the cries of Clara, Mrs. Thornton's flour-dusted kitchen offering him warmth as a child. She had vanished one summer, her laugh stolen by the very same winds howling outside. "Remember," a chorus echoed, each ghost begging with words Mark had never known. He stood at the precipice, an unwilling emissary to the lost and forgotten. Each name tugged at him like a lifeline, anchoring him to the world, yet promising to rip him away. The storm unveiled itself further, revealing not just innocence but darkness too. Secrets, sins, buried in the very foundation of the town. What happened to them? What did I miss? Panic flooded his senses. The swirling center in the tempest began to shine brighter, illuminating his surroundings, an ethereal light piercing the chaos. And then he saw it. Shadows morphing, shifting into familiar faces. "David," he uttered hesitantly, the name escaping like a thief in the night. The wind faltered. A soft, guttural returning sound followed, whispers of "finally" entwined with spirit. The storm shifted direction, an unsteady promise filled with longing and rage. The walls around him began to pulsate with energy, resonating with the names spoken, but no salvation was found. "Mark, you have to stop!" Sarah's voice was a rising tide of panic. "You don't know what you're doing." Mark's hands trembled, instinct battling the lure of the deepening shadows. "It's their chance. They deserve to be remembered," he shouted back, not entirely convinced. He took a step closer to the storm's heart, his pulse racing in time with the thunderclaps. A vision hit him then, a child's laughter laced with sorrow, specters of past lives begging for release, carrying burdens heavier than he could ever imagine. Anxiety twisted in his gut, but the shadows growled, "Finish it. More names. More. Release." The cacophony of voices morphed tenfold, and the room felt simultaneously expansive and claustrophobic. The ground quaked beneath his feet, reverberating with power and pain. "Is this my doing?" Panic flickered through his veins like a live wire. He stood on the fragile line between redemption for the lost and destruction for his family. Every word tossed into the storm felt like currency, a bargain he was not sure he wanted to enter. Lightning illuminated the space around him, revealing faces he recognized, interwoven with those he did not. His family, lost in the tumult. The price of speaking their names was steep, and dread pooled in the pit of his stomach. Once he took that final step, the inevitable would follow. "What lies in the center?" he questioned, both to the storm and to himself. Time slowed as he stared into the haunting light, swirling in the tempest, alive and insatiable. "Mark," they beckoned, a reminder of everything he held dear, a plea wrapped in despair. And as he prepared to speak once more, a chilling echo rang out among the storm's whispers, "You will not escape." What awaited him at that threshold? Would he unleash lingering horrors, or could he break the chains that bound them? The storm roared louder, drowning out reason with a relentless hunger. The air thickened, stifling his breath, as the shadows swirled closer, hungry for Mark's voice, eager for his confession. Lightning flashed again, illuminating silhouettes that began to take shape. Distorted faces trapped in silent screams. Their mouths moved, yet no sound emerged, only the chilling whisper of wind, each breath marking the moments they were forgotten. "Stop it!" Sarah shouted, fighting against the force that insulated them from fleeing. She stumbled forward, hands reaching out, but the tempest pushed her back, a wall of dark energy thrumming as it repelled her. "You're losing yourself, Mark!" But something deeper than fear gripped him. Alongside dread brewed a strange sense of authority, a rush of power that surged through his veins. The spirits sought acknowledgement, and in some twisted sense they might also offer answers. Pieces of the puzzle buried beneath the ash and vine of time. He clenched his fists, torn. What if I speak their names? What if they come back? Not all names are worth speaking. A voice slithered through the chaos, one he barely recognized. It was soft and intimate, fraying the edges of his sanity. Some should remain buried. Mark's heart raced as shadows flickered, their forms growing clearer. Was that Clara's face? No, it was twisted, deformed by despair, her eyes pleading as she hovered just out of reach. "Mark, don't listen to them! You can end this!" she cried, desperate and frantic. Darkness pulsated with energy, and the shadows hissed in unison. "Finish it! Release us!" They loomed over him, an insatiable tide of ghostly synergy. Every name flickered in his mind like the last wisp of a dream, both yearning and terrifying. As if the storm fed off his indecision, its growling grew louder, more chaotic. Thunder cracked, relentless against his senses. "Say it!" It was the shadow again, coiling around his thoughts, promising salvation from his doubt. Release your burden. Their lives merit recognition. But each name felt like a nail digging into his chest. The moment weighed heavy, a decision cloaked in shadows. If he spoke, he could risk unraveling the thin fabric of their existence, opening the floodgates to long-held torment. Yet if he remained silent, what kept the darkness at bay? What if choice meant losing everything? An icy gust swept by, as if the storm itself shared his turmoil, urging him onward. He gritted his teeth, scanning the faces that flickered like memories caught in terminal disarray. Each one a life that had been, each one demanding their moment, their story. David. The name slipped past his lips as a shudder coursed through him, combining fear and longing into one chilling concoction. "I remember you." A low, guttural rumble washed over him. The storm groaned, distorting into a cacophony of voices chanting his name, each invocation tearing at the fabric of the room. The once familiar faces spiraled and shrieked, swirling between moments when they were whole and alive, leaving behind echoing fragments of their unmet dreams. The world spun as the storm seemed to dip lower. He felt a shift in reality. Energy wafted toward him like smoke, wrapping around his thoughts, pulling tighter. Every surged, caught in the pull of his confessions. Mark's heart thudded, vision narrowing. This was not just about remembrance. It spiraled into something sinister, a reckoning. With the weight of the world teetering in his hands, he uttered another name, this one tinged with venom and lost love. Clara. The storm's howling crescendoed, dark clouds tightening like a noose around his neck, suffocating him with regret. "Mark," a voice called from the center, smooth and hypnotic as it slithered closer. "You're all we have. Come home." His breath hung within him, caught between desire and fear. What lay next would open an abyss, but temptation nagged. Perhaps here existed the power to rewrite the endings. As a last, thunderous clap thundered overhead, the shadows erupted, cascading into forms more monstrous and yearning than he could ever have imagined. The storm roared, drowning out the cries of reason. "Are you ready?" they taunted, voices merging into one desperate plea.
As Mark met their eyes, a deep-seated urge stirred. He stepped forward, inching into the storm. He had woken a longing for more, but now he feared what might ask for his heart in exchange. Was he stepping into illumination, or would he become the very darkness he sought to dispel? The tempest swirled, a mirror reflecting his choices, waiting to see who would emerge on the other side. The storm raged on, consuming everything in its chaotic embrace. Mark felt as if he were being pulled into the abyss, every flicker of lightning revealing more horrors than he had ever imagined. The faces, once familiar, now twisted into grotesque caricatures, their mouths forming silent screams that echoed in his mind. He could feel their despair, an overwhelming tide of sorrow that crashed against his senses. "Mark!" Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, fragmented and filled with anguish. "Don't let them take you! Fight this!" He could see her struggling against the wind, futilely fighting against the invisible force that held her back. Fear clawed at his insides. He felt the shadowy figures pressing in, their collective breath ghosting over his skin, cold and clammy. They were hungry. They needed him to understand. "Do you not wish to know the truth?" The smooth voice slithered past his ears again, each word dripping with temptation. "The truth shall set you free." Free? The word sparked something within him, igniting both desire and dread. But was it truly freedom they offered? Or was it just another chain, rusted and shackled to his soul? Mark's limbs trembled as he shifted his gaze to the reformed faces, searching for Clara. What had she become? Was she the same girl who had laughed beneath the sun? Or had the darkness claimed her entirely? The thought made his heart race, pounding in time with the thunder rumbling above. "Clara!" he shouted into the storm, voice breaking. "What do you want from me?" The storm howled back, a cacophony of voices blending into one. "We want to be remembered. We want
to live again." The thunder responded with deafening intensity, as if punctuating their plea. Mark stepped closer to the precipice of their world, torn between the icy grip of uncertainty and the warmth of reclaimed memories. "Tell their stories," the shadows begged, their forms flickering like dying embers. "Reclaim what was taken." A wave of energy washed over him, a surge so potent it nearly knocked him off his feet. The shadows surged in anticipation, their faces eager and hungry. Every name weighted his heart. What would happen if he released them? Would they emerge as vengeful spirits, or would they find peace? Suddenly, a memory flashed. A time when he had stood beside Clara in this very room, laughter bubbling between them like an elixir of life. The irony clenched in his gut. Now he stood in a pit of despair where joy once flourished. "Speak their names," the voice coiled around him, enticing and sinister. "Join us." With his heart pounding, Mark darted his gaze around the swirling mass, horror skimming his skin as he recognized more faces. Each silhouette echoed a past he never meant to unearth. Friends lost, promises broken. Did he want to awaken their memories or dive deeper into their pain? "Mark, don't!" Sarah cried out, desperation thick in her voice. He could feel the weight of her fear pressing against him, yet the shadows loomed larger. It was now or never. "David! Clara! Mary! Tom!" he shouted against the wind, fragments of names falling from his lips under the storm's roar. Each utterance felt like opening a dam, like unleashing a tide of raw emotion. They surged toward him, faces morphing into expressions of hope. With every name tossed into the whirlwind, he could feel their souls reaching for release. Yet, in that moment of connection, the air crackled. A dissonant harmony between the living and the dead echoed throughout the storm. The shadows seethed, turning darker, more aggressive. "Enough!" their collective voice thundered, anger licking at the edges of his consciousness. "You dare play with our fate?" Mark's breath hitched as the energy shifted. The faces turned from pleading to menacing, eyes igniting with rage, twisting into a nightmare. He took a step back, heart racing, dread filling him with a cold sweat. What had he awakened? He had opened a door to the past, but now the storm wanted its due. "Mark, what have you done?" Sarah whispered, soft and terrified, as the wind picked up, shrieking through the cracks of reality. Around them, the shadows tightened, a vortex threatening to pull them under. His dark choices lay heavy on his chest. In his pursuit of truth, had he cost them not just their peace, but also their very existence? As a furious howl rang, Mark's heart pounded violently, each beat a whispered question in the encroaching chaos. Would he fight to seal the darkness away, or become its next victim? The shadows surged, eager and wild, demanding their reckoning. The storm was seething.
Only beginning. The shadows pressed closer, their forms swirling like dark smoke, an unsettling dance of souls demanding attention. Mark felt panic rise in his throat, choking him. They seemed to swell with each gust of wind, the storm amplifying their hunger. How had he awakened this darkness? "Fight it, Mark! We need to get out of here!" Sarah screamed, her voice nearly drowned out by the furious winds. He could see her straining against the storm, her arms flailing as if she could physically push the shadows away. Yet she only seemed to further entice them. He took a staggered step back, trying to regain control of his racing thoughts. But the memories flooded in, so vivid and raw. Each name he had spoken sparked a flicker of their essence: pain, joy, sorrow, anger. Their truth was sharper now, glimmering like a knife in the dark. "Leave us!" Mark yelled, his voice hoarse against the tempest. "You wanted to be remembered, but not like this." The shadows recoiled momentarily, faces rippling, caught between desire and wrath. He could feel their multitude eyes locked on him, endless holes of despair. "Your call binds us," one voice spat, each word laced with venom. The fury in their gaze seemed to surround him, creating a tempest of palpable dread. "You opened the door, and now you must pay the price." For an agonizing instant, Mark thought of turning back, of begging Sarah to leave while there was still time. He could feel his limbs growing heavy with fear, but the flickering faces pushed him forward. Clara's sweet smile blended into a grimace, drawing him in, pulling him deeper into this abyss they shared. "Mark, no!" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts like a beacon against the darkness. "You have to choose. Don't let them control you." He felt torn, caught in a net of haunting memories. But in that moment, clarity struck him like another flash of lightning. They weren't just seeking stories, they craved vengeance. And if he didn't redirect their anger, he might become the very thing he feared. "You think I owe you anything?" he thundered, his resolve hardening. "You were my friends, but you've become something else, something I can't recognize. I'm not your vessel." The shadows recoiled, their collective energy staggering, and he took a step forward, heart racing, horrified yet exhilarated. "Let go of your hatred," he shouted. The wind whipped around him with ferocity, but he pushed on, each syllable fortified with his terror. "Release what binds you. You can't live trapped in misery." With those words, a silence laden with tension washed over them, freezing the storm for a heartbeat. He felt the shadows shift, searching his eyes for sincerity. Would they respond? Or was it too late to turn back? The ground trembled beneath him, and the storm exploded back into chaos. Wind whipped around him, a cacophony of howls echoing in fury. "You think you can save us?" they screeched, almost mockingly. "You
will join us before dawn." Mark's heart plummeted. The implications sent shivers racing down his spine. He could feel the energy spiraling out of control, threatening to swallow him whole. The idea of becoming one of them, a shadow, forever lost, choked him with panic. "No, I won't!" he screamed into the madness. Grabbing on to whatever remaining strength he had, he forced himself to embrace the flickering memories. David, Clara, Mary, Tom. He called upon their names again, not in dread, but in recognition. "I remember you all," he bellowed, summoning the truth within each shattered memory. "But I will not surrender." The storm wavered, balance tipping dangerously, shadows swirling wildly, limbs reaching, grasping, desperate for his surrender. Mark felt like he was teetering on the precipice of a rift that begged to consume him. He had to act fast. He closed his eyes, summoning the warmth of their shared laughter, friends bound by life and love, and hurled it into the fray like a shield. "Release! Release your darkness!" The storm convulsed, fighting against the tide of his resolve. Would his light be strong enough to quell the vengeful spirits, or would their lust for revenge take him, dragging him down into their festering despair? As the tumult reached a fever pitch, Mark felt something ripple beneath his feet. The ground beneath him cracked, a yawning chasm threatening to pull him down, and the shadows screeched louder than ever. "Mark, hold on!" Sarah cried desperately. But soon he realized it wasn't just the storm that wanted him. No, something darker was rising below. Something that wanted to drag him deeper, claiming not only his life, but his very soul. He took a leap into action, heart hammering in his chest. Was it the right move? Yet as he dove toward the blackness, he knew there was no turning back. The storm was only the beginning. What awaited him in the darkness? Would he become its prisoner, or could he seize freedom from the depths of despair? Mark stood on the edge of chaos, heart racing, feeling the storm's fury pushing against him like an angry wave. The shadows danced closer, their cries merging into a deafening roar. He glanced back at Sarah, her face pale and fearful, as she clung to their children in the shattered remnants of their home. "Stop!" she screamed. "You can't give in to them!" Tremors rumbled beneath him, and the weight of the storm pressed heavily, demanding his surrender. The shadows whispered his name, weaving tales of despair, calling him to join their eternal lament. But Mark, anchored by the flickering lights of his family, drew upon the warmth of shared memories, lighting a fire within. "No!" he shouted against the tempest, his voice rising like a banner. "You want me to remember? Then I will remember the love, the joy you brought into my life, not this misery." As he spoke, bright flashes of light ignited within him, each name a flickering candle against the consuming dark. "David, Clara,
"Mary!" he shouted, his words pouring forth like a raging river. "I remember all of you, your laughter, the moments we shared." With each name uttered, the storm shuddered, losing some of its furious grasp. Energy erupted like lightning, twisting and turning in arcs of brilliant light, illuminating the twisted faces of the lost. "Forgive us!" they cried, caught between desperation and longing. He felt that deep well of sorrow reflected in their gaze, an aching pull from lives worn down by silence. Surrounding him, shadows began to quiver, wavering in the light of his remembrance, revealing traces of their former selves. Lost friends, brushed aside by time but not forgotten. "Release your darkness!" Mark screamed, with the wake of 1,000 souls behind his words. "You don't have to live in the storm forever!" Suddenly, the swirling mass began to still, anger shifting slightly as hope flickered around him. But that longing was a quiet plea, their faces brightening at the acknowledgement, for every sweet remembrance sent ripples of peace through the storm's heart. "Let the past go," Mark urged, energy swirling around him as he forged a connection to the memories that tethered them. "I see you! You are not just shadows! Your pain deserves to be heard, but you don't have to cling to anger." The cacophony of despair began to soften, shadows retreating in reluctant acceptance. The storm pulled back, revealing a flicker of light at its epicenter, a soft glow pulsating like a heartbeat. "Mark!" Sarah called again, desperation and relief intertwining as she took a step forward. "You're doing it! Keep going!" Mark focused on the light, heart hammering in unison with its pulsing rhythm. "Let the storm be your release," he said, voice steadying. "Forgive those who have forgotten you. Set yourselves free." The shadows swayed, faces morphing from anguish to something almost serene. Emotions flickered across their features. Hope, understanding, it was palpable. With each name spoken, the shadows grew vibrant, their forms becoming translucent, ethereal. "Remember," they whispered, their cries blending into a lullaby of acceptance. The storm roared fiercely one last time, a final protest against the tide of change. And as the tempest slammed against the house, Mark felt a pull from deep within, like the promise of dawn rising on the horizon. "I remember you all!" he shouted once more, this time with a defiance that shook the very ground beneath him. "I will not let your stories die. I will carry your light forward." And then the storm broke. In a breathtaking surge, the oppressive darkness exploded outward, a kaleidoscope of swirling shadow and light. The once hungry specters transformed into shimmering orbs, rising higher, lighter, more vibrant than ever. The air shimmered with their essence, mixing with the remnants of rain that fell like silver threads from the heavens. A hush fell over the landscape, the chaotic energy giving way to stillness, allowing the lost spirits to ascend toward the luminous embrace of the night sky. Liberating echoes of laughter that burst free, filling the air like music. Mark stumbled back, breathless, as the storm faded, leaving traces of its power behind. A cool breeze, the cleansing scent of rain, and the soft glow of moonlight that poured through the opened windows. "Did we?" Sarah ventured, glancing around as if waking from a dream. "Yeah," Mark whispered, heart swelling with relief. The house stood as a sanctuary once more, warmth flooding the space, though remnants of the storm lingered like a ghost of the past. Scout scampered back to them, barking joyfully, every inch of him glowing with relief. They gathered together, a family once more, bound by love and resilience. Mark held Sarah close, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat beneath his palm. "We'll carry their stories with us," he murmured, glancing toward the dark skies now painted a peaceful blue. "We won't forget again." Underneath the shimmering stars, the McLain family found peace amid the memory of the past, a truth that would guard their hearts and lead their future. And at that moment, the storm seemed to dissipate entirely, no longer a curse, but rather a bridge of connection, linking the living to the lost, weaving memories into the fabric of life itself. Now, as Mark wrapped his family in his embrace, something profound shifted. Night moved onward, and their laughter, once chased away, returned, shining brightly like stars reborn. So, if you've enjoyed this wild ride and want to keep getting these intense stories, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second. Smash the like button to help us grow, and flood the comments section with your thoughts, theories, and reactions about this ending. And here's the deal. Share this with at least 5 friends who have got to see this conclusion. Your support means everything, and together we can keep this incredible journey going.